Scripture. Then when Herod saw that he had been tricked, outwitted by the Magi, he became very enraged. People close to him had seen that, recognized that. They knew that was not a good thing. And he sent and slew all the male children who were in Bethlehem and all its vicinity from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the Magi. So the speculation is based on that Jesus could have been as much as approaching 2 years old by this time. And Herod didn't want to take a chance on missing this rival king who had arrived. Now, there is a major Jewish historian from that era who recounts for us much of what was going on in the Jewish world of that time. His name was Josephus. Josephus doesn't make any mention of this, although he does make mention of other of Herod's atrocities. And some have said, well, obviously, if Josephus doesn't mention it, it didn't happen. The thing we've got to recognize is Bethlehem would have been a small community. We don't know for sure, but very likely not that many males, little boys, lost their lives that night. And in comparison with much else that Herod had been responsible for, this wouldn't even have ticked the meter hardly. Josephus, it may not even have come to his attention or his thought to include it in his history, such a minor thing. Some commentators suspected maybe less than a dozen. It would sort of been like if Herod had been in Champaign and sent his soldiers to Westfield. You know, how many little boys under 2 years old are in town? Not that many. Would there even have been a notice in light of many of the other atrocities that Herod had been responsible for? Probably not. Unless it was one of your little guys. You know? We've got two of them right now. One of them was at the house last night, little Jack man. Little is just colloquial because he's he's eating well, that boy is. But had we been there then, maybe little Jack man was gone. It wouldn't have mattered to us, whether it mattered to Josephus or not. Hold on to the tension there a little bit, and we'll read on, just so you get the details of it. Then what had been spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and she refused to be comforted. Dan picked up on and wondered about why Rachel was identified here. Well, she was buried in the vicinity and would have been recognized sort of in this region, this area, as sort of the matriarch of the Jewish race. And so her heart would have been broken at this genocide. But when Herod died, verse 19, we don't know exactly how long it was. It wasn't a terribly long time. When Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up and take the child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." So Joseph got up, took the child, his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. You see, it was known already that Archelaus was much like his dad. And who wanted to be under that reign of terror? Then, after being warned by God in a dream, he left for the regions of Galilee and came to and lived in a city called Nazareth. You may recall that's where the story all began. There was a virgin in Nazareth, and Gabriel showed up and said, "Hey, girl, you have found favor with God." It wouldn't be too many days before I reminded you 2 weeks ago that prophetically an old man in the temple said, "Oh, and by the way, in the midst of all this incredible stuff you're experiencing, there is reserved for you a sword for your soul." That'll rock your theology again, little one, as we looked at that. They went to Nazareth. This was to fulfill what was spoken through the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. 1, 2, 3, 4 prophetic scriptures revealed. And how many dreams? 4 dreams. Man, those dreams are just coming out everywhere. When was the last time you paid any attention to a dream you had? Other than maybe just a little entertainment at the breakfast table. You will not believe what I dreamed last night. No, I don't want you to share. No sharing of those dreams. In our Western mindset, we have dismissed the possibility that God could actually communicate to us in our subconscious state. In their Eastern mindset, they didn't rule that out. They acknowledged that God could very well communicate to them in that form. It had been their experience. It was part of their heritage that God communicated that way. We, through no fault of our own necessarily, in our Western mindset, are very scientific and cut and dry, nuts and bolts. And so we would dismiss this possibility. I would implore you to be cautious about that. Keep your heart and your mind open to the fact that God may very well want to meet you there. I mean, how could we deny it? Once it even arrived to a wealthy group of astrologers. If God could speak to that bunch of characters through a dream, maybe to us too. You know? Now, we're novice. We don't have much experience, so you need to be very cautious. And notice too that these were dreams that they didn't just hit the street corner as soon as they had one. You know, it was, in this case, it was some very personal, directed guidance. Yes? So, if you're open to God speaking to you, be cautious. And recognize that we don't have a lot of experience of hearing Him through that means. Okay? You with me? There's just really a couple of things that I want to make sure you get out of this chapter. Oh, it's loaded, as you see, but a couple of things that the Lord impressed upon my heart to draw some attention to this morning. First of all, I want you to see that when God spoke to Joseph, yet again, he simply obeyed. He simply did what it was that God told him to do. He didn't enter into some huge season of deliberation. And mind you, this has happened for him before, you remember? After Mary was with child and he was thinking he was going to do the right thing and put her away secretly, an angel of the Lord came to him in a dream and said, Joe, don't be afraid. You know? God's all over this. This boy is going to save the world from their sin. You can call him Jesus. It's all good. So he got up and did just what the angel told him to do. Simple obedience to do what it is that he tells us to do. Twice here. Joseph, you got to get the kid out of here. Herod's going to try to kill him. Joseph knew there was much on the line. He could not leave this one who has been entrusted to him in jeopardy. Didn't even wait for morning. You know, mamas, you know how difficult it is. If Jesus was sleeping, we're not waking that kid up to go to Egypt tonight. Right? I just got him down. Joseph said, we're out of here. We got to go. Just obedience to what it is that He's told us to do. No negotiating. No explaining away. No downplaying. Just did what God told him. Happened again. Time to go back. Warned him in a dream. Head for Galilee.